Rightio, welcome to the 2026 Queensland Highland Pipers Society International Piping Recital. This year we've been very fortunate to get Willie McCallum to Brisbane. It's the first time Willie's been to Brisbane. He's been out to Melbourne and I think Adelaide for the RU Brown, but it's the first time he's been here, and he's already told me that this is the best place he's ever been to in Australia, so he's good in my books. Tonight we've convinced a couple of other young fellas to play with Willie. So we've got a local talent in Docherty, and he'll perform first tonight, and he is going to be on in about 3 minutes, so I need to get through a bit. And the second performer tonight is McCartan, who's out from Scotland, and he's been here for a couple of weeks. And it's not live streamed, Chris, so I can say whatever I like because your mum won't see this, but I'm pretty sure he's thinking about moving out here shortly. Is that right, Chris? Well done. There you go. Someone probably recorded that and sent it to your mum anyway, so we'll be fine. Right, so what can I tell you about Liam Docherty? So tonight, Liam is playing a set of 1916 Hendersons that we found here in Brisbane, silver and ivory. They were owned by a gentleman who had the pipes bought for him by his grandmother in Glasgow from Henderson's, and when I got hold of these pipes, they were still in the original leather box with the price tag in pink underlay still on the top cover. He was the only owner until they went under the bed after his death, and they sat there for about 15 years, and we've now resurrected these pipes, and he's been playing them now for a bit over a year. Liam's really started to take off in his piping career now. He's a BBC boy. He ended up being pipe major of the band, but he's also started to play with man or two Scottish in first grade, so that's certainly elevated his playing abilities, but it's probably also allowed him to learn a lot more from travelling around the world. So we're quite happy with that. Last year, Liam performed for the first time in a competition called Pipe Idol, and so did Chris. They were both in the same contest last year. Liam shocked us because he played extremely well in composed, and that's not like him because he normally turns up and has about 3 or 4 mothers or Red Bulls or something like that. So he often plays very fast. So tonight we've asked him to be composed. He had a lesson on Tuesday night at my house, and that was with Willie and I, and it was involving several bottles of red and a few whiskies. So poor old Liam got a really thorough thrashing by having a lesson that went till probably 9:30 at night, when my daughter came in the door and told me, "Do you think it's time that we stop playing the pipes at 9:30 at night?" I said, "No, doors are shut. It's all good. It's all fine." So he's not listening. I told him to walk through that door at 7:10, so I'm just going to open the door, and when he comes on, if you can put your hands together for Liam. Well, that was, like I said, it was going to be fast. Lots of funny notes in there. I'm sorry, Malcolm. Lots of, you just can't stop these young fellas. They love playing all of these fancy notes, and it's well past me now. But most importantly, we're now moving on to our main attraction. So Willie's going to play twice for us tonight. He'll play probably just over half an hour now, and then we'll have a quick break, and the bar will be open. So a few of us can just quench our thirst, and then it will push you back in, and Chris will play just after that break, and Willie will play a second set later tonight. But look, Willie McCallum is widely regarded as one of Scotland's greatest living Highland Pipers, and one of the most successful solo competitors in the modern era. Hailing from Argyll, he has spent decades at the top of the piping world, earning a reputation for technical brilliance, musical elegance, and remarkable consistency on the big stage. His competitive record is extraordinary. One thing Willie and I share in common is that between us we have 9 Glenfiddich championships. I have none. He has 9. But I drink a lot of Glenfiddich with him occasionally. But more than any other piper in history, it's a feat that has cemented his legacy in Scotland's piping tradition. Alongside this, he has collected major titles across all of Scotland's premier solo events, from the gold medals both Inverness and Oban, and multiple former winners, MSR titles at both of those events. For audiences here in Brisbane who may be meeting him for the first time, Willie McCallum represents the pinnacle of Highland piping, a master musician whose influences spans generations, Chris being one of those later tonight, and whose competitive success is unmatched in the modern piping world. I'll just go and grab him now, and when he does come on the stage, please give him a warm Brisbane welcome.
Thank you. Just a little set of 3/4s, but great tunes, I think. They're all composed by one of the greatest composers of bagpipe music, and that was Pipe Major John McClellan of Dunoon. And all of these tunes represent places where he went and fought in the First World War and earlier. So the first tune is called the Highland Brigade at Magersfontein, which is in South Africa, and John McClellan was involved there as a piper in the HLI. He's more noted for being a piper in the Argylls, but when he joined the army he was in the HLI, and he was awarded the DCM there, which is one of the highest awards for bravery, and that was a really major battle in the Boer War. And the second tune is called Buzongsi, and of course that sounds like a French name, and it is. It's the name of a very small town east of Paris, northeast of Paris, and there was several battles there, and this particular battle was part of the Second Battle of the Marne, and John McClellan was there as part of the 15th Scottish Division, and they fought alongside the French. So you think, well, that's a great tune, but he also wrote a poem for this particular occasion. It's a very sad poem. If I read it to you, I would start crying in the middle of it. Absolutely amazing words. But one of the ends of the verses, he said, the noble thistle of Scotland will flourish on the plains of Buzongsi amid the roses of France. And it's a beautiful poem. But then the French picked up on this particular poem, and that little bit there is actually inscribed on the war memorial in Buzongsi in French. So it's quite an accolade. So John McClellan had done it all as a piper, a pianist, a whistle player, a fiddler, a poet, and also an artist. So amazing man. The last tune is well known, The Bloody Fields of Flanders, and I'm sure that just explains itself. I'm going to play a couple of 6/8 marches. You might notice tonight there might be a few tunes that were originated in Argyll, and so that maybe is not any surprise to quite a lot of you. So I'm going to play a tune, a couple of 6/8s. One of them, first one is called Banaw Highlanders. I remember somebody came to play in front of me one day and they said, I'm going to play the Bonawee Highlanders. And I said, no, it's Banaw. So I went to Banaw with Angus McCall one day. I was up in Benderloch, and it's just on the other side of the Connell Bridge. And I don't know what I expected to see at Banaw, but there was nothing there. It was just a quarry. So it wasn't very exciting. But the story is there that all of the people there worked in quarrying it, and they actually made all the cobblestones that were then laid in Glasgow. So there's a few pipers amongst them, so that's why the Banaw Highlanders were formed. So I'm sure it wasn't very good for their hands, but there you go. So I'm going to follow up with a tune composed by a man from Oban, so it's very North Argyll, called The Sweet Maid of Mull. That was composed by Alan Beaton. And when I knew Alan Beaton, he was a very old man, and just an absolute gem of just a proper piping enthusiast. So it's a great tune, I think, and one of very few he wrote. So thank you. I'm going to follow that up with some suspension reels, so I'll just keep the pipes going. Thank you. So just a couple of words about the spades and reels. The first tune is a tune I've just recently started playing. It's a modern, kind of modern composition written by Pipe Major Angus MacDonald called Spitfire. And that was written to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Britain. Of course, the Spitfire was a major contributor to that. And then followed that up by a well-known tune, The You with the Crooked Horn, but a slightly different setting that I've been playing, well, forever, I think, really. I first heard Hugh McCallum playing it when I was just learning the pipes, and I thought, I want to learn that. So that's the setting by Robert Reid, the famous piper. And then I went on to play Cameronian Rant, which is a fair chunk of music, very much a favourite, soloist sandpipe bands. And then I started the reel set with another tune associated with Pipe Major Angus MacDonald, and that's Lieutenant Colonel D.J.S. Murray. Angus didn't write the tune, but he arranged it from a 4/4 march written by John Allen. Then I played a tune which was developed by Donald MacLeod from an old Irish reel, and that he named it Roddy MacDonald's Fancy, which is a great favourite of mine. And finished off the set by a tune called The Man from Glengarry, written by D.C. Mather. That's an old tune as well. I'm going to play some marches, some 2/4s, and they're probably all associated with Argyll in some way. The first tune I'm going to play was written by Pipe Major Willie Laurie, and it's John McCall's March to Kilbowie Cottage. And Kilbowie Cottage is in Oban, and John McCall was from Oban as well. And then I'm going to play a tune. I'm trying to remember the order of these. I'm going to play, get a bit of paper out, I think, before I say the wrong thing. Yeah, I'm going to play a tune called Captain Campbell of Drummer Voice. A tune I've played since I was pretty young. And Drummer Voice is not really a proper name for a place, but it's actually an anglified version of a place called Drummervuich, which is in North Argyll. And I'm going to finish off that set with a Donald MacLeod tune associated with Argyll as well, and it's called Mrs. Duncan McFadgen, very famous march. Mrs. Duncan McFadgen will be perhaps unique in that 3 of her sons were double gold medalists. There's John McFadgen, Duncan McFadgen and Ian McFadgen. So it's amazing that you could have that much talent in a family, you know. And I attended a party there in December for Ian McFadgen, and it was his 90th birthday, so it was a great celebration. He's still going strong. He's like somebody that's 30 years younger. A great character of piping. And then, so I got to the party and he said, "Oh, this is my twin sister." So I was like, wow, good genes in the family, I think. So my friend is young Ian McFadgen, his son, and I said, you're going to live for a while, you know. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. I can't remember what I played there. I played a little slow air that I wrote, I think the back end of the year. I kind of just made it up when I was tuning my pipes and trying to get in the go. And then I kind of tidied it up a wee bit, somewhat. So I didn't have a name for it, but I ended up calling it the Angel, but I don't know why. And then I played 3 hornpipes. The first tune, well-known tune, Jim Tweedy's Sea Legs, and a 5-part tune which is supposed to represent the seas that he would have passed going from Scotland to Australia. Anybody that was with me last Friday would know that I didn't really have my sea legs myself. So then I moved on to a tune by Donald Shaw Ramsey called Tam Bain's Lum, and finished it off with a hornpipe version of the Irish Washerwoman. So I'm going to finish off the half with a pibroch. So it's a pibroch that lasts 25 minutes, but I'm only going to play the first 21. But I do joke. I'm going to play a very short pibroch, and it's a kind of one of these things that I was thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking, how do you get from Donald MacLeod, Pipe Major Donald MacLeod, to 1984? So here's how the story goes. Donald MacLeod composed a tune called the Cronin Corryvreckan, and the Corryvreckan is a whirlpool at the north end of Jura. And so the tune is supposed to represent this whirlpool, which is one of the biggest ones in the world. So I hope you can sense the circular motion, and it's quite a short tune. But then it got me thinking, like, who has any stories about it? So anyway, the Isle of Jura, it's where George Orwell used to go and hang out. So I did a little research into that, and found out that he was almost drowned in the Corryvreckan whirlpool. So anyway, that was a year before he wrote 1984. So we might never have seen that book. The Corryvreckan never got a hold of him. So anyway, I'm going to play. It's a short tune, but composed by Major Donald MacLeod.
Another round of applause for Willie, please. We are running a little bit behind our schedule, but please everybody, if you'd like to exit this way, and toilets, drinks. Well, we're almost back on time. That's 8:45. Thank you so much for coming back in and being organised. I probably could have kept talking for another half hour with Gordon, but I made him go and sit down. But as you can see, he's still standing and talking, so that's fine. That's right, Pete. Sit down, mate. There's Cookie in the door. We can start. Once Cookie's in the door, we're good. That's not me, somebody else. Okay. Hang on, I'll turn this down. Yep, someone's coming through the foyer. Sorry about that. I'll move this over. So, I'm sure you all really enjoyed that first half. Willie McCallum is still just like a machine, absolute machine. He doesn't miss anything. And one of the young fellas came up to him at the interval and just said to him straight up, "How do you play and not miss anything?" I think he said to you, Austin, 1,000,000 practices. Didn't he say, or was it 2? 1,000,000. So that's what we expect to see from you between now and the weekend. So okay. A few judges in the audience, and they're looking forward to hearing that, so that you don't miss anything. Okay, our next piper, we're very fortunate to have Chris out here. Chris McCartan is a young fella from a place called Dochert. Anyone know where that is in the room? There's a couple of people, right? Okay. It's in Argyle, shock me. And it's just down the road from Inverary, and it just so happens it's a place where Stuart Little teaches. And so Chris was very fortunate to have learnt from him all the way through his schooling life. Chris started playing at the school, and then he played with Mid Argyle Band. And if you know, it's pretty hard to tell with his big red beard and the fact that he's 6 foot something and he looks like he's come out of the Highlands, but he's only 20 years old. So it's just blows my mind. He also blows one of the biggest reeds I think I've ever heard, and it's great for the St Andrews Pipe Band this weekend at Maclean because he's covering at least the entire front rank, so that's pretty awesome. But recently he's managed to get into the Inverary District Pipe Band, and he's been fortunate to play the last 2 years where they've won the Worlds 2 years in a row. He's also about to graduate later this year from the Royal Conservatory in Glasgow, and so he has an enormous amount of tuition every week from Willie McCallum, who's one of the lead educators in that program. And so Chris also plays a bit of tin whistle and a few other instruments, as they all do as they come out of the conservatory. But because he's from that Argyle setting, because he plays in Inverary and he's playing with Willie, it's all about the music. And so this young fella has been outstanding for the last 2 weeks. I've had him playing on the back deck and just music constantly. And his final presentation at university this year will be all about Argyle music. So guess what? You'll get more Argyle music if you didn't get enough earlier. More's about to come through the door because that's what he's been focusing on, and he's collected pictures from all the famous composers of Argyle, and so that's what he'll probably come back to tonight for his playing. He should be walking through the door just about now. Before he starts, he's playing on a set of pipes that have been played by quite a few people in this audience. That again, another set that I found here in Brisbane. They're a set of Starks. So Stark was a flute maker in London, and he made most of his instruments out of cocos wood. But Willie Ross, the famous Willie Ross from the castle, asked him to make a set of pipes out of very similar to the set that he played. And this set I found from a gardener who works at University of Queensland. He rang me up. He bought them off Sandy Campbell many years ago. They were a bit busted and broken. They had bits and pieces hanging off them, but I took them across to McCallum's workshop and they renovated them. They put some ivory back on top there where it was missing, and they also recreated the stocks from a set that they had in the shop. They copied them from. So this set was being played by a few people, but they got returned to me, and I went, well, it's silly that they're sitting in the cupboard again. So I showed them to Chris, and he played them last weekend when he won the invitational contest at St Paul's Presbyterian Church in Brisbane. So that was an invitational of 10 people under 25, where they played 2 sets of music, and he was the winner just last weekend on these pipes. So I'm going to get him, drag him through this door, and when he does, if you can put a warm Brisbane welcome together for him.
pretty toasty up here, although it feels cold. Maybe it's just the plane. So that was a March for Spey and Rail. Arthur Bignell of Lochrosk, which is by J.S. McLennan. And then I went into a Spey called The Top of Craig Vanau, which is by John Stewart. And then I finished off with Fiona MacLeod, a reel by Donald MacLeod. So I'm going to do a wee bit of a mixed 2 sets just to finish off my wee bit here. So I'll do a set with a waltz, which is a tune by Terry Tully, which is called Richard's Gone Bananas. And then I'm going to go into a couple of jigs, the first being Thunderhead, and then The Famous Baravan by Gordon Duncan, and then finishing off with the Skyman's jig, written by, I think the first 2 parts are John McClellan, 3rd and 4th are Duncan Johnson. And then the final set, I'll just keep them going, the final set is a Gaelic song called Firavata, into 2 wee Speys. The first one's called Rodney Hull QC by Bill Livingston. The next is called Adrishik, which is a town just next to where I'm from, in the Mid-Argyll area. And then 2 big reels, one called Duntroon, another place in that area, and then a big reel, The Successful Lover by Al MacDonald.
That was awesome. Righto, let's get on, because I know we have to be out of here by 9:45, so we'll make sure we keep moving along. Just a couple of other things I wanted to say about Willie as he's coming out, but about being the teacher, the mentor and the innovator that he's been. For more than 2 decades, Willie has been one of the most sought after piping instructors in the world. Beyond his extraordinary competitive career, he has shaped the next generation of elite pipers coming through, which is great, and that's just teaching across the UK, but also Europe, North America, and now Australia. He's taught at major piping schools, led workshops, and since 2016 has served as a lead tutor at the piping degree at the National Piping Centre. Many of today's top soloists have been guided by Willie, and you've seen a few of them here over the years, such as Glenn Brown, Peter Hunt, Andrea Boyd, and Alistair Henderson, all of whom have gone on to win the major prizes such as the gold medals, clasps and Olympic titles, mirroring Willie's own achievements. Willie's influence has also extended into the pipe band world over the years. He's played with several top grade bands. He started with Babcock Renfrew. He played with the old B Cal band, plenty of people have heard about that, which then became Scottish Power, with whom he helped secure multiple championship successes. More recently, he's performed with the Spirit of Scotland Pipe Band, an all-star ensemble that was assembled a couple of times for major competitions. I think they even wrote a rule about it not being just a one-off. I had to play at a couple of contests, so that was quite funny. But before he became a full-time musician, he's a man after my own heart. He was an accountant for many years with the University of Strathclyde, a career he left in 2010 to devote himself fully to piping. He also plays a really key role in the product development of McCallum Bagpipes, helping design the successful MC squared solo tenor, which he's playing tonight. And at home at Bears Den, he enjoys family life with wife and children. He's a mad Ranger supporter, and that's what brings joy to my heart with all these bloody Celtic people in my house from time to time. But he's also performed for the royal family with Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III. So for Willie's last 20-25 minutes, please put your hands together and away we go.
So I started a tune with a tune there that's very much associated with this part of the world, and I think most of you know the story of that probably better than me. A lovely tune called The Two Ronnies Maggies, and it's and I followed that. That's written by Ronnie Fleming, and I knew Ronnie only briefly when I was young, because I would only see him when he came back from here to Campbelltown. So another tune he wrote, I think while he was here as well, was the next tune I played, Bengalian, and it's one of the most famous pipe tunes in the whole repertoire. Great tune, and Bengalian it's not really a mountain, it's a big hill, which is sits above Campbelltown. So I saw Bengalian every day of my life when I was growing up, so got used to it being there. It's a great tune altogether. So, Brisbane all the way to Campbelltown, these two tunes. And then the second 6/8 I played was written by Major Ronnie McCallum, a relation of mine, and of course Stuart, who was here last year, his grandfather. And that's called the Highland Brigade Depot. I'm going to plan is to play a wee set of Strathspeys and reels, little short ones. I don't know how many, and I don't know all the names of them, because sometimes the plan changes somewhere in the middle. I was having a conversation with Angus McCall a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, you know, when you go to a recital and you've got all these great plans, then when you're driving up in the car, half of the tunes are out the window. Yeah, because you thought, I'll have that one ready. But anyway, we'll see what happens. And then I think I'll play a couple of 2/4s after that. Okay, thank you. So I'm trying to remember all the tunes I played there in the Suspays and Reels. So I started off with J.F. Mackenzie of Garrynahein, not sure who wrote it. And then I played the Duke of Gordon's Birthday. That was a setting that I picked off of a cassette that my Uncle Hugh sent me when I was wee. He used to send me cassettes down and learn all the tunes off them. The old days before everything was on YouTube and stuff like that. You know, these were the days. And then I played a tune that called The Dusky Meadow, which is in one of Alan MacDonald's books. I just played the first 2 parts of that, but quite a tricky thing with the wee bubbly note there. It's good fun to play. And then an old fiddle tune, which is called Mrs. Stewart of Grantley. It's great with all these long rundowns. Fun tune to play as well. And then the reels were Loch and Doon, the Peary Wig, The Night We Had the Goats. I've no idea what that's about. And then, I can't remember, McPherson's Rant, I think it was. And then a Don McLeod tune called The Barn Dance, an old reel called Sandy Duff, and an old reel called Put Me in the Big Chest. So that was all. I'm surprised I remembered them. And then I played a couple of 2/4 marches. The first tune is called Willie McCallum Senior's March, which I wrote for my dad. And it's well, without him and by my side, I wouldn't probably be standing here playing pipes, you know. So he was a wonderful guide to me and encourager, and he was actually the man that started me on the chanter. So I don't think I had much of a choice, because I think he always wanted me to be a piper because he gave up when he was young. So that was written for him, and so the second tune there was an old tune by Hugh Mackay, who tended to write really difficult 2/4 marches, 71st Highlanders and Stirlingshire Militia, all these hard ones, and this one is a particular kind of cruncher of a 2/4 called Angus Campbell's Farewell to Stirling. I'm going to play a wee air and a couple of hornpipes, and I'll tell you what these are all after I finish. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the solo here I started with was My Home. I hadn't planned on playing that, I was going to play something else. Anyway, well, the three hornpipes were planned, so that wasn't so bad. First tune was written by Pipe Major John MacDonald of South Uist in the Glasgow Police, and probably one of the great titles of a tune in piping, The Piper's Controversy. You know, so the two go hand in hand, of course, every day in piping. And so I followed that up with a Donald MacLeod tune, Dr. McInnes, and then the third tune is a tune by Bob Worrell from Ontario called The Sorcerer. So I'm just going to finish off with a little set of jigs, and I'll tell you what they are at the end. Cause, yeah, and just thanks for all coming out tonight and for the recital. Liam and Chris have been great players to hear playing, and this is a great environment to play bagpipes. So thanks to everybody. Thanks to Andrew for looking after us royally this week, and I'm looking forward to the McLean games. Everyone says it's great, so I'm sure it will be. And the bonus of going to Highland games here is, I hope, it's not raining. Thank you.
was awesome. You two boys coming down. We have to do this pretty quick. Thank yous, because we need to be out of here by 10, and we've just had 3 hours of playing, which was a bit longer than we thought. So thank you, Willie. Anyone that can name all of those jigs, and I got everything except the last one. I don't know what the last one was. If you can do that, then you can buy me and Willie a beer up at the pub. So we'll go straight afterwards. Can you guys come out in the middle, please, in the light? Ladies and gentlemen, we've had 3 hours of fantastic entertainment tonight. Can you put your hands together for Chris McCartan, Liam Docherty, and Willie McCallum? If anyone takes some pictures of that, can you post it on the Queensland Highland Pipers Society? Thanks, Jim. That'd be really good. Thanks so much for everyone coming along tonight. Your support is really critical for these sorts of things to continue. To bring these guys out from Scotland every year is a costly endeavour, but it's done in such a way that our future pipers get to hear the great pipers that have just done everything for that.